Hello and welcome back to my channel, Lydia Lost the Plot. I'm Lydia and I'm here today to do the Dilemmas of a Book Nerd tag. I had to look down because I cannot remember the title of this. That was started by Lindsay's Little Library, and I was really super excited to film this, and I have just filmed maybe a third of it and then realised I hadn't pressed play. So if you watch till the end of this video, I will show you what I actually recorded, which was hysterical because it's just me talking to myself about nonsense, thinking that I wasn't on camera, and I was. So I might put that at the end. But let's get into the tag. So the first dilemma is book storage. How do you store and organise your books? So I sort of have a system, organised system. I mean, there are books everywhere. There's literally books everywhere. I can't help it. But I'd say predominantly I keep my TBR, so all of the books that I have not read yet, in my bedroom, which is here. So I have all of my hardbacks on the top, and I have all of my fiction paperbacks here. I also have hold on, I feel like a also have classics, and then to my right here I've also got a book trolley with all of my proofs on. I do like to keep my proofs separate from my unread finished copies, only because I'm usually gifted the proofs. In fact, I'm predominantly always gifted the proofs, so I like to keep them separate for in reviews. Whenever I'm talking about them, I like to be honest about where I got them from, who gave me them, and to give credit to the publishers and authors, because it is a privilege really to be given books. And I also like to be transparent with you all. You know, I don't buy all my books. If I did, I would be bankrupt. So so I keep them on a separate trolley so that I can it just helps to differentiate it in my brain. The rest of my books I will keep downstairs. I have some bookcases and I have some wall mounted shelves, and on there I keep all of the books that I have read. But really, I would say it's like the creme de la creme of my reads, because they are essentially what I would say the best books, because I tend to give away a lot of the books that I read that I'm a bit like meh about. I don't see the point in keeping them. I live in a teeny tiny cottage and I don't have space, so I am a bit brutal when it comes to getting rid of the books that I tend not to have become attached to, or I didn't feel particularly strongly about. If it's something that's, you know, I didn't feel particularly strongly about but it's a nice addition, I might keep that. But I tend to only keep the really good ones, which is difficult, but I do it. So dilemma 2 is tracking. How do you keep track of what you have read and the books that you own? So I don't keep track of the books that I own, which occasionally has got me into a little bit of trouble, and I've bought the same book twice. I think it was My Name is Lucy Barton. I bought like 3 times in a cherry shop. I was like, oh, and I got it home and I was like, why do I have so many copies of this? I've still not read it. So I don't keep track of what I own. However, I do keep track of the books that I've read. So I do that through, I have a journal, and at the back of the journal I'll write down every book that I've read and then put a little asterisk next to the ones that are 5-star reads, just to help remind me. And then I also use the Storygraph. So it's a fantastic app. I'm sure you've heard of it, but if you've not, it's a great book tracking app. You can input all your reads on there. You can get sort of graphs and pie charts and statistics. I know that at Ben Reads Good would be loving the statistics. But yeah, you can get loads of really cool information from it. What genres you're reading, what maybe you could improve on reading, what format you read in, and it just helps you understand your own bookish trends, your own sort of habits, what you should be, you know, not should be, but what you might want to explore a bit more, what you might be indulging in a bit too much if you want to vary your reading. So it's a really useful tool and I do like it. I am at lids221b over on the Storygraph. If you follow me, don't be surprised that I've not updated it for a few months. I am planning on updating it very soon, but I blame ADHD, but I am planning on it. Dilemma 3 is borrow. Do you lend books out? I do, all of the time. I think that my love language is book giving. If I really like a book, I will try and give it to as many people as possible. Sometimes I'll get multiple copies of them to share, and I like to put like a little message in it sometimes. And yeah, I think it's really important to share stories, and this is why we read. It's not just for that solo solitary experience. It's also a way of connecting with other people and connecting with other people's stories. So when I read something really good, I like to share it, and and I'm not precious about my books. You know, I have been known to crack a spine. Don't, I know it. I used to be really sort of particular about making sure they were in pristine condition and like reading them like this. And yeah, I don't know what happened. I think I had children, and then I realised that nothing is precious, and that, you know what, if I'm going to be reading a paperback, it's going to get coffee on it, it's probably going to get baby milk on it, it's probably going to end up dropped in the bath, or something's going to be ripped off it. And I just sort of let it go. I was like, all right, okay, this is how I'm going to read now. And it has been quite freeing, so I'm not so particular anymore. I don't mind. And as soon as I give a book to somebody, I'm not expecting it to come back in perfect condition. Books are meant to be read, in my opinion, unless they're very special editions or signed editions. I have one bookcase that is full of very special editions of books, and that's the only bookshelf that I wouldn't lend from. Dilemma 4, buying. How do you acquire your books? So I always buy my books from a Waterstones because I get a cheeky little discount, or I will buy books from independent bookstores. I don't buy online at all. I used to, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's within your budget, if that's all you can afford, then you go for it, because you know what, they are cheaper online. But because I can afford to buy a book from a bookshop, and it's usually a considered purchase, then I do tend to buy books in person. I also like to talk to the booksellers. I'm a bookseller myself, and I think that we have a great knowledge of books, and sometimes you don't quite know what you're looking for, and someone will convince you and it's perfect. So there's nothing like that bookshop experience. I think it's really important. So I will go to a bookshop. I do acquire a lot of proofs from publishers. I do get sent a lot still. I used to do a podcast. I'm still in touch with a lot of the people that I used to work with on the podcast, and so they still send me books and highlight, you know, authors, debut authors that are coming up and stuff, and that's really helpful, because I like sort of having the heads up about books that are coming up, new books, because it's helpful for my job as well, for preparing for when they do come in the shop, so I can be more informed. So I do get a handful of books for free a month, and I do also purchase books too, so it's sort of like a nice balance. Dilemma 5 is comments. How do you respond to how do you read so much comments? So I don't actually read that much. I usually on average will read maybe 7-8 books a month. A good month in terms of like a lot of books would be maybe 10. A slow month would be maybe 4. So it's usually, you know, 1 to 2 a week. I don't tend to be annoyed when people ask me that, but I do see where they're coming from, because it's like, how do you read so much? Oh, you mustn't take it in, or you must speed read, or, you know, I get that a lot. Oh, but you know, do you skim read? And I don't. I read fast. I've got a natural ability to read fast. I read text messages very quickly, and people always, you know, when someone shows you the phone and you read it, people always think that I'm faking it. I've read it, but I'm just good at scanning stuff. So yeah, I do tend to just sort of say like, oh, you know, it's my job and it's my main hobby, so I don't really mind people saying that. You know, a lot of people don't prioritize reading in their life, whereas I do. I never used to, and that would mean that I'd only read maybe 2 books a month, whereas now I try and make it a priority. I try and do it because it's part of my self-care, it's part of my recovery from my illness, and it helps me get better. So it's like taking medicine. It's very important. So dilemma 6 is next book. How do you pick your next read? Well, by whim, all of the time. It's mood. It's so mood driven, and sometimes it'll be because I've got a little project going on and I want to read you know, I don't know, something for a prize list or something for a video that might dictate what I read, but I never feel compelled to. I never feel like I have to, because if I felt like I have to, I wouldn't do it. I'll be completely honest. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. So I tend to just pick up what I want, and that's been the best thing. I spent so long when I hosted a podcast reading because I had to get the books read, I had to prep for interviews, had to interview the authors. That's a great thing to have to do, but it did mean that my sort of the books that I wanted to read were constantly being pushed back and on the back burner, whereas now that I have, you know, the option to read what I want when I want, it's fab, and I'm really enjoying it, and I've read some corkers, let me tell you. The next dilemma is dilemma 7, which is travel. How do you pick which books you bring on vacation with you? I'm not American, so I take things on holiday, but I tend to usually not read that much on holiday, which I know sounds counterintuitive because I'm bookish and usually it's like I need to take 700 books with me. But if I'm going away, I tend to want to soak up the culture, the stuff to do, and things like that. So I don't tend to take that many books with me. However, I will always take one, and it's usually a big one. Usually a Stephen King to read on the plane, and I will try and read a few books when I'm there. I tend to also like to pick up a book whilst I'm wherever I am, especially from abroad and there's English language books, because then that book has like a little memory for me, a special feeling of, you know, I got this in Malta or something. So dilemma 8 is annotate. Do you write, highlight or mark your books in any way? Now I do, but it depends on what book it is. So non-fiction books I tend not to annotate, but a fiction book I will know within probably a chapter if it's a book that I want to annotate. There are a lot of books that I want to go back to and annotate now that I do that. I never used to. I wouldn't have dreamt of writing in a book, whereas now I'm like, yes, this line's really good, and I want to, you know, highlight stuff because I want to remember it and I really want to soak it up. So I do annotate now. The last book I fully annotated was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, because I knew within about the 3 pages, I was like, I just couldn't. I was like, I need this, and it is so good. So yeah, that would be fully annotated. But on average, my regular reads, if it's sort of a book that I start reading and think this is cracking, then I will get my pen out. If not, I will just read it, and because that tends to be something that I might re-gift or pass on. And sometimes I think once you've annotated it, some people don't like that. So yeah, I usually choose within the first couple of chapters whether or not it'll be annotated. Dilemma 9 is new or backlist. Which do you prefer, new releases or backlist books? Now this is difficult because I love a new release. I am all up and all over new releases because I love new books. I love hearing new authors, and I like to be, like all of us, like to be part of the buzz. You know, when someone's talking about a book and how great a book is, you want to be involved, don't you? And so yeah, it's one of it's one of those things where I read a lot of new books and I don't read enough backlist titles. But when I go back and I read stuff, especially sort of classics, like the one that springs to mind at the minute is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin, which I've just read. And that's been waiting on my shelf for ages. And I got to it and it's so good. It's so good. And you think, why did I leave it this long? So it's a difficult balance to get, reading new books and also getting to those backlist titles. I still am trying to get through all of Stephen King's backlist, which, I mean, frankly, he writes a book a year. I'm going to be dead before he is. So it's going to be tricky, but I'm going to try. So dilemma 10 is sequels. Do you read books as they are released or wait for an entire series to be published before reading the first book? Now, this, I would say, is probably one of the things that I definitely do, which is I have to read them all together. And this is why I don't read many series, because I like them to be either complete or at least, you know, 2 or 3 of them available. But also, I feel like I can't read one and then go away and then read a couple of books and then go back. I have to experience it all as a whole. So things like A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, I've really wanted to start, constantly wanted to start that. But there's like 8 books and I would have to read them all together. Which means I would have, first of all, no variety in my reading. I probably wouldn't read anything for work. And also, you guys would get bored because it'd just be me talking about the same series the whole time. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think that, yeah, I like to read everything all together. Now, if there's a book that I read and then there is subsequently a sequel released, then I probably won't go back and reread the first one unless it's really good. But yeah, I tend to, if I can, I'll read them together. But that is the end of the dilemmas. Now, I've thoroughly enjoyed this because it really does get you thinking about the way that you read and the things that you the things that us bookish people have to deal with. These might not be huge dilemmas, but I find it really interesting. So I will leave the questions down below in the description box. If you want to do this tag yourself, please do record your video and then tag me in it so I can watch, because you know, consider yourself tagged, because it's just so much fun doing these tags and it's so much fun answering these questions. So I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about my dilemmas. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Don't forget to like this video if you've enjoyed it, and to subscribe to my channel for even more cool bookish content. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye. Let's film. I look like Monica. Oh, the humidity.